Hey man, if you were 0 like if you were 1-5 against a team, if you've won one game in 4 matchups, would you like be talking a lot of shit before the game?
Hell no. Because at this point, it's like, bro, we know we can't beat y'all. So like, I should probably just be quiet at this point.
It would probably be helpful. Not that, like, look, I don't know how motivated the team was because he said what he said. And what he said was Cleveland is Cleveland. I was about to call them the Cleveland Elves or something like that. And yeah, that added a fun little tag to put on this. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. You don't want to make the loss any bigger than it needs to be. And you putting that out there makes the loss way bigger than it needs to be, especially when you're a team like the Bengals, who, if you beat the Browns, it wasn't going to be a big deal. So the only thing you had to gain was this loss becoming a much bigger deal because of what you had to say. Now, that's before the game. If you then lost to that team, had 40 yards maybe,
I think 35.
35,
35.
and 5 receptions, 35 yards. That's Allen Robinson numbers. And then your quarterback had 82, and you lost by 21 points. Would you then double down?
At that point, you just gotta shut up, dog. You gotta shut up.
I don't know why it's so hard. We all know what you got to say in that moment. Hey, the Browns played a great game. I look forward to seeing them again. It was a rough one for us. We got to execute better. And we're going to get back to work this week to prepare for Baltimore. That's all you have to say.
All you gotta say.
That's all you got to say. It ain't hard. I'm not a genius. I'm an idiot in the chair. I thought of that right here on the spot. That's all you got to say. What Jamar Chase say?
Man, I'm just frustrated because we just lost to some damn L's. I'm like, come on, bro. Like, why?
Why is he Dylan
Why?
Brooksing right now? Like he is doing the Dylan Brooks. Why are you making this worse? Like,
Hey, somebody on Twitter said the Browns DBs be having Jamar Chase in an arm bar. And I was
that
like,
was,
he be talking like they don't, though. That's the problem.
I think that's why he's so mad about it. Is because the Browns secondary legitimately like does the best job in NFL shutting him down. And it's not just Denzel Ward. They be passing them off. Like, that's the thing that I think he finds disrespectful is that they're not just having Denzel Ward follow him because I think he can accept it. If it was Denzel Ward following him, eating him up, all right, man, sometimes you have a bad matchup versus a guy. It's the fact that they be like, all right, my homeboy gonna get you for this part. We be tagging in Greg Newsome, and then we be like, hey, our young boy hey, yo, Martin, come up here, Martin. Handle this right here, dog. And we be tagging in Martin Emerson to get in on that. And he still can't cook. Like, that's what he gets frustrated with. It's not the fact that it's the fact that they don't do anything different when they play the Cincinnati Bengals. Like the Browns played the same way, at least the secondary that they always have. They didn't shadow him. Raymond were like, oh my God, it's Jamar Chase. Let's bracket him the whole game. He would accept that. We was leaving that man 1-on-1 with our worst man corner. And he was still getting ate up. Like,
Listen, man, I understand what even Grant Delpit had some plays in that game because
Grant Delpit was putting him in hell. Grant Delpit put the whole back. Look, Grant Delpit is not going to get the credit he deserves, but Grant Delpit was the second best player on that defense in that game. And Denzel Ward was incredible. Martin Emerson was incredible in that game. Grant Delpit was the second best player. Like, you can make the argument he might have been better than Miles because he had 5 stops. Those constitute failures for an offense. He had 5 stops from the free safety position, by the way. And these weren't like, oh, I stopped them at the 9-yard line. No, he stopped these at the 2. Okay, like got in coverage, got targeted 7 times, gave up 14 yards.
Bruh.
And had a pass breakup and had a pressure. He was all over the place. I was like, damn, if this is the Grant Delpit the Browns get, it might be a wrap for the North at that point. If this defense is that good, all Deshaun Watson has to do is catch up. Like, that's all he has to do. They held the Bengals to like less than 200 yards total offense. They kept that trio of wide receivers under 50 yards.
Complete domination.
T. Higgins got targeted 8 times in that game.
No catches.
No yards. Nothing. He could have not played in that game, and they would have been better off giving them targets to somebody else because he got nothing. Like, he got nothing. Nada. It was seatbelt city for them. And that has to be frustrating because it's not like the Browns did anything special. They basically said, we're going to have 3 safeties out there and we're going to play you guys one-on-one like you want me to, right? The Bengals always talk about nobody plays us one-on-one. Nobody gives us the man coverage. Well, you got the man coverage and you got put in the seatbelt. And you got the nerve to talk shit after the game? Remember, that's the most egregious loser talk shit that I've heard since Jalen Ramsey got his ass beat by AJ Green and was in the post-game presser like, I got in his head though. like get out of here.
Man, that entire game was just fascinating to watch. The whole game against that Browns-Bengals game was so fascinating.
You know what was fascinating? They didn't even get mad. And I remember, I saw the feeling that was going on in that Cincinnati sideline. And it hit me. I'm like, oh, I know that feeling. That's how it used to feel when Ben would do his thing to us. We weren't mad at each other. Nobody was cussing each other out on the sideline. It was just like, man, why does this always happen here? Right? Like, that's what it was. When Joe Burrow got sacked on that forfeit too, by the way, incredible play by Myles Garrett, beats a double team and then sacks Joe Burrow while he's running the opposite direction that Myles Garrett is. Like, incredible play. Joe Burrow goes to that sideline. He just looks deflated. He throws his helmet on the hook and he just, I'm done. Like, I'm done.
Over.
I'm done.
Over. Literally put Jake Browning out. Put Jake Browning out there. I'm good.
I was like, I'm not saying it's the same thing as when Ben Roethlisberger was dominating Brown. Obviously, the context is different. The Browns were a significantly worse team than what the Bengals have been. But it's still the same thing within the small case of like this matchup, specifically in Cleveland. But overall, like, it's still not a good picture, even when you add in the Cincinnati games. And that's what I felt. I was like, oh, they're demoralized. They legitimately don't think that they can win in this stadium. And if you're the Bengals, that should concern you, because what if the Browns are for real this year? They talk all this shit about how they got the one up on the Chiefs. What happens if the team that has the one up on you plays you in the playoffs? I think the reason Bengal fans have been chirping so much with the Browns is because in talking about how the Browns have had success, is because they desperately don't want the Browns to be good. They desperately don't want to worry about the Browns in January. Because if they have to, it's going to be a problem for them.
I'm going to be honest with you. And like we said in the earlier video, you can't take too much away from week 1. There's some things you could take away, but you want to make sure you're not overreacting. That defense, without Juan Thornhill, by the way, that defense might be legit. And when I say legit, I mean that might be like a top 7 or 8 unit in the entire NFL at this point. With that Browns defensive line, specifically the edge rushers, Zadarius Smith and Double O. I'm not gonna try to pronounce his last name. You know, we're gonna mess it up.
Hold on. We talk about this going off the rails. While we're recording this video, Tristan Thompson just re-signed with the Cavs. Welcome back home.
Okay.
That's our solution for Mitchell Robinson? All right, man.
Hey, respect the legend. Respect the Cavaliers legend.
But hey, look, this is my fault, because you know what I did say last year? Tristan Thompson would never allow what happened with Mitchell Robinson to happen. Well, now we're going to find out.
Maybe they needed the vet. Maybe they needed the vet back in there. You know what I'm saying? Maybe they needed that voice in the locker room.
Tristan Thompson being together. A vet is crazy. Like, him being a veteran voice is crazy.
Listen, man.
We said they needed to be less squeaky clean, and okay, let's bring in Tristan Thompson. You know what I mean? Like,
Hey, is that not a solution? Is that not a solution?
yeah, it is something. But let's continue to talk about the Browns. Yeah, that Browns defense is crazy. Grant Delpit, I don't know if we've talked about him yet. Doesn't get talked about enough. Fantastic in that game. Denzel Ward, fantastic. JOK had his moments in that game. They can just match up with anybody, which is scary. And here's another thing. They were able to stop the run out of like nickel and dime sets. Think about that. This Browns team, that was one of the worst run stopping teams in football, could not do anything, could not stop the run with 10 people in the box last year. They stopped the run with legitimately like 7 people in the box.
Shout out Dalvin Tomlinson. Shout out Dalvin Tomlinson. Shout out Zadarius Smith. Shoot. Let's just talk about the interior defensive line real quick, because I feel like Browns fans are going to give these guys credit because of what we saw last year, but I kind of feel like they're kind of like the unsung heroes of the defense all the time. Obviously, you got guys like Chris Jones, Quentin Williams, Aaron Donald, who get a lot of love, but even guys like Dalvin Tomlinson, Shelby Harris, you know what I mean? Maurice Hurst was in there a bunch making plays. Even Jordan Elliott was better this time around. You know what I'm saying? Like the improvements of that part of the Cleveland Browns, I think, are going to carry this team in the early part of the season to a bunch of wins that they would not have got last year.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Just the defense being as good as it was is why you won that game. One of the things that was interesting with the Browns this week was, remember how many leads this team would get over the last 3 years where we'd be up by like 30 and we find a way to win by 7? That happens so much with the Browns over the last few years, right? I made this point. I think Chops posted a video. It's like, this is the loudest that everybody got in the stadium. I was like, because it was that 4th and 2. We all know what we were thinking when that 4th and 2 popped up. You know what you were thinking. I know what I was thinking. This is going to be the moment where they convert on some bullshit 4th and 2. And they start a drive, and this is where the comeback starts, because that has been the story for the Cleveland Browns for decades. This is where it starts. Oh, we're this close to ending a game. We don't make a play. Where's Miles, right, on this play? It's always something.
But real quick, how much of that is because of what happened with the Jets last year?
It's not just that, though. Like, this has happened so many times before with this team where it's like, Kansas City Chiefs opening game 2021 up 17 or 12 against the Chiefs. We go back to get a drive. I think we ended up being close. We had to punt like at our 5th half field line, and then Jamie Gillian fumbles the punt. We miss a field goal. You know, Pat Mahomes comes back, wins by 8. Same thing in the playoff game, Cole, right? Remember that moment where Chad Henne threw that interception? All Baker got to do, get a field goal out that drive. Instead, we go 3 and out, get the ball back. Chad Henne converts the first down. We never get the ball back. It's been the story of the Cleveland Browns' life when that moment happens. We're doing so well. Last year, home opener. We're dominating Baker Mayfield, making him look like a complete scrub. All of a sudden, we let him throw 2 touchdowns in like the last 8 minutes of the game.
Both of which were busted coverages, if I remember correctly, right?
It was the 2022 Browns, Cole. It was all busted coverages.
Shout out Joe Woods.
Another point I want to hit on. Right? I want you to point out the people we talked about today. Because, yeah, Zadarius Smith was cool. Dalvin Tomlinson was cool. But we really talk about Miles, Grant Delpit, and Denzel Ward, Martin Emerson. They were here last year, Cole. JOK was here last year. I understand if they weren't going to be as good as they were against the Bengals last year. You telling me we couldn't have got a decent defense out of that? We could have got decent out of that. Joe Woods was sitting on this treasure trove of talent for 3 years and dropping straight ass for 3 years.
It's crazy.
He had Metro Boomin, DJ Mustard, TM88, all producing beats, and he dropping straight butt cheeks on these tracks.
Nah, it's like if Wu-Tang had all the rappers that they had, you still got Ghost, you still got Ray, you still got Method Man, but instead of RZA doing all the production, it's like who's a terrible
Chance the Rapper.
You got Chance the Rapper making all the beats.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
You got Chance beats in the background, going on in the background of Wu-Tang.
Like, what's going on? Like, what the fuck is
this? You know what it is? You know what it is? It's like if you went back to 2007, plucked Kanye from his producer chair, dropped him in his producer chair, and said, all right, Kanye, make these beats for Designer. Like, that's what it was.
What is going on? Joe Woods, man, it's just, I don't even think he did a good job with the Saints yesterday. I don't think he did a good job. They won the game.
Yeah.
But
I don't think he in charge. Like, who makes that man in charge after that? Like, he's not in charge. I don't care what anybody tells us. That man's not in charge. He's clearly not in charge. But I say all that to say, it's frustrating that this team could have been much better. It's obvious they could have been much. The talent's always been there. Denzel Ward's always been good. All these guys have always been good. But what we saw, too, was a defensive coordinator who knew what to do. It reminds me of David Blatt, Ty Lue. Hopefully we don't get into an NBA tangent here, right? But what was David Blatt's biggest issue? Was that when the last minute of the game happened, he was out here trying to call up plays to get like Tristan Thompson a tip dunk. You know what I mean?
Or J.R. Smith an open three or something.
Yeah. When he had LeBron on the team. When he had Kyrie on the team. He out here trying to draw up stuff for the whole team, and he thinking about his scheme instead of his ballers. And you know what Jim Schwartz said? I got Myles Garrett, and I have Zadarius Smith. We gonna run some 2-man game. And peep this, Cole. This is gonna be a hot topic in a year when everybody catch up. A lot of defensive line play is turned into pick and roll basketball. Where it's like, how can I pair these two guys together, right? You notice in that 4th and 2 sack, they put Myles and Zadarius right next to each other over Jonah Williams because what they're trying to do is create confusion. Okay, we know a chip's coming. We want to hesitate that chip. Maybe we'll stun them. Maybe we'll twist them. Maybe we'll do a little hezzy where Zadarius will cut towards Jonah, stop, let him get picked. Jonah's going to adjust to that, and then Myles is going to blow in right behind him, right? Or you saw this stuff where they put Myles at linebacker and let him attack that A gap, right? Those are going to be staples. What you saw there was Jim Schwartz saying, hey, it's 4th and 2. Hey, it's 3rd down. We need to get off the field really bad here. I'm going to call a play for my best player to get the ball, right? Like, I'm going to put something that puts Myles in position to win. I'm going to get my best players open here. Not I'm going to do this thing and we're going to execute this perfect coverage in the back end. No, I'm going to put my best players in a position to impact the game. People complained all the time about Myles under Joe Woods. He doesn't impact games, even though it wasn't true. Myles still found a way to be productive, especially in some of the most clutchest moments, even dealing with Joe Woods. But Jim Schwartz is explicitly putting him in a position to make those plays. And what happened, Cole? What happened? He made the play that everybody swear TJ Watt makes, but Myles never makes, right? Like, that was a play straight out of the, this is why we love the Watt brothers book, right? Like, that was a forfeit too. You went for it. You tried Myles, and what did Myles do? He blew up Jonah Williams in like 0.2 quarters of a second, and it just disregarded that weak ass chip that they tried to put on him and got to Joe Burrow and used his incredible flexibility to grab him and basically ended the game. Because now we got Deshaun who finished the drive. What a concept, because there would have been a time where like somebody would have threw an interception in that spot, or like we would have kicked another field goal. But we finished the drive, we finished the game, we ended it right there. That's a different team. You know what that was? That wasn't the Cleveland Browns team we've watched for like a while. That was a good football team doing good football stuff. It was weird, Cole. It was weird to be like, nah, that's how any other team would finish that moment. But the Browns have not finished that moment, you know?
It's always weird trying to make that adjustment to watching the Cleveland Browns and being like, man, they're actually a good football team, a well-run football team. There's not like a large talent deficiency in our football team compared to the other team. They just went in there, they beat the Bengals' ass, and they just went on about their business. And now we got the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday. We go see what that look like without Cam Hayward.
Is he out?
He's out for like 8 weeks.
Wow.
He's having surgery.
That's not good.
Yeah.
Interesting to see. DeJuan Jones stepped in, played fine. I think that's also something to note. You know, came in against a veteran player like Sam Hubbard. I think that was good for him to play well in that game. And I think it's good for his development because
with you, by the way.
PFF
disagrees with you, brother.
They've tried to like do something with their, I don't know. They clearly have had cutbacks or something because like the grade quality has gotten so much worse. I don't know if it's like this, like, oh, we just don't want the Browns to be good, so you know we don't have to want to talk about them thing. If it's that, or if it's just the fact that they're hiring less quality graders, because like the grade quality has been more. What is going on here? Right, like,
they gave Denzel like a 51, I think.
I don't see how you get there.
Yeah,
I don't
like,
see
how.
It doesn't make any sense how you get there with those grades. Sometimes a PFF grade would be like that, and it makes sense once you look at the film. But like more often than not, I'm being befuddled by some of these PFF grades. But yeah, the Browns, impressive win. Jamar Chase talking shit. And to be honest, that wide receiver core has probably the least room to talk some smack, right? Like at least the defense for the Bengals kind of showed up. Kind of. They didn't do nothing with Nick Chubb, but they kind of showed up. You know what I mean? Shout out Nick Chubb, by the way. So many people were telling lies about him all season. Remember all these lies we was hearing about Nick Chubb, about how he could be cooked any minute, Quincy. He's a running back. Oh, they're going to have to change the style. He can't adjust. We were talking about the best running back in football as if he can't, as if changing where he takes his hand off is going to just completely self-destruct him. This is really what we were doing. It was ridiculous. Like sometimes analytics people get so wrapped up in their like study that they think that anything that breaks the sample is going to like completely reset that player. And it's like, no, these are football players. They can just do something different. They'll be fine. Like a really good football player is a really good football player. I promise you, you can have Christian McCaffrey do a bunch of things. He'll be good at it. I promise you, if you give Christian McCaffrey like a year, he'd be a good safety because he's just good at football. Like
if you give him a year,
yeah, if you gave him like a year to make the adjustment, like he's not gonna do that in the NFL. Just show up, play safety one day. You give him a solid year, he'll be decent. He'd be above average.
I don't know about all that. I do find it hilarious though that we have all these conversations about how running backs aren't impactful and running backs don't matter and blah 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 blah. But Nick Chubb and Christian McCaffrey sure do matter today. Their respective football teams. I don't know.
This is what I said. I said this on Twitter too. We are so convinced in positional value that we don't even question it anymore. Like, we don't even question who's getting the money. Like, a quarterback like Daniel Jones gets $45 million. And everybody says, ugh, that's a terrible deal. We all know it's a terrible deal. But we're like, okay, yeah, it's quarterback. It happens. Jonathan Taylor asks for $12 million and people react as if he is about to start another strike. Like the amount of people that, it's not worth it, Quincy. It's like, what are you talking about? If you had Jonathan Taylor and Saquon Barkley, I promise you the Giants score a point. Like, you can have Tyrod Taylor out there with those two. I promise you the Giants score a point on Sunday Night Football. I promise you that.
It's ridiculous. But I don't even know how we got here. I don't even know how we got here to this point where we actually have these conversations. How do we even get here?
And here's the thing. People will say, this is the thing that drives me crazy. Well, running backs are a dime a dozen. Shitty quarterbacks are a dime a dozen. Well, first of all, like, you telling me you can't get Daniel Jones for free? You can get what Daniel Jones gave the Giants on Sunday for free. I promise you can find that. You can sign Josh Dobbs right now, get that same level of quarterback play. It ain't any different. It ain't that much different. You can get Josh Johnson. At least he knows the offense. Like, I promise you can get bad quarterback play pretty cheap. Like, but if you could convince yourself that somebody might be good, even when we know he's sorry. The Giants knew he was sorry when they gave him the deal. Nobody thought this deal was good. The best somebody can say, the most optimistic position I heard on that Daniel Jones deal was what? Well, maybe he grows into it. Which is saying what, Cole? We know he's not good. We know he's not good right now. That's what you're saying when you say that. We know he's not good right now, but who knows? Maybe he might be in 3 years. We are willing to give that dude $45 million because he might somewhat be good. Might. Instead of a all-pro rushing champion running back. We think that grows on trees, but we think Daniel Jones is rare?
It reminds me of what Mark Jackson said. What happened to the game I love?
I don't know, man. Like, I think analytics has done some great things, but I think it's done hell to the discourse, especially when it comes to positional value, because somehow we've convinced ourselves that running the football is easy to do in the NFL and unimportant. Please. Hey, you know Austin Eckler's still a good running back, right? Like, he ain't just get replaced by some 6th-round rookie, right? You notice how the gap between Nick Chubb and anybody else they try to give the ball in Cleveland, all right? Even when they had Kareem Hunt, who was a Pro Bowler himself, there was a massive gap between Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt to the point where people still got furious when Nick Chubb got taken off the field.
I ain't gonna lie. Wait, hold on. I ain't gonna lie. I got real pissed yesterday when they took Nick off the field and Jerome Ford fumbled. I got so mad.
This is what I'm saying. We act like
why?
We act like it's so replaceable, and then Nick Chubb gets taken out of the game and we lose our mind. Obviously, it's not super replaceable. It's not. Because this is a very hard position to fill. It's just as hard to find a great running back than it is to find a great wide receiver. The odds are pretty much the same. You're not guaranteed to get a great running back because you draft somebody in the 3rd round. I don't know why people believe this lie. And it's a lie that we're not even critical about, Cole. If I go on here and somebody say, well, he was a running back, so it's not worth the value. $12 million? $12 million, man. That's all. Derrick Henry makes $12 million. Ryan Tannehill makes what, 36? Corey Davis got 13.6. And he retired. Okay. Like, Odell got 3 catches last night. $15 million, man, for Odell Beckham. But Jonathan Taylor can't get 12 for his 30 carries a game? Think about that too, Cole. If you sign a running back, you expect them to get 30 carries and at least like 80 to 100 yards a game. What wide receiver produces on that level? Nobody. Nobody gets 1,700 yards. Like, these are a running back's bad year. Think about this. A running back that's signed. I'm not talking about like a regular running back. A signed running back you would consider having a bad year if he got less than like 1,100 yards in a 17-game season.
Mm-hmm.
You're willing to pay $20 million for a wide receiver who could do that. Well, we're not willing to pay $20 million for a running back who could do that and maybe get you 300 receiving yards on the other side too. How did this happen? How did we get here? How do we get so far away from what actually happens on the football field with the pay scale that we're actually at this point? Running backs have to receive and run the ball. They have two jobs and pass block.
I'm about to say we didn't even get in the pass pro yet either.
All wide receivers have to do is run routes, and we are convinced that they are so much more essential than a good running back. They're both very valuable, right? Like, they're both very valuable. But I don't know why we play these games, man. It's just the takes that I heard in response to my whole thing about like, yo, Daniel Jones gets 45. We can't give John Taylor $12 million, man, but we could give this liability. We know you can't do much in the Super Bowl because you have a liability. How many liabilities are getting paid handsomely? Kirk Cousins, liability. You know you ain't going to win the Super Bowl because you got Kirk. Liability. Ryan Tannehill, liability. I ain't going to get started on Russ, who just lost the game to Jimmy Garoppolo, who's another liability. Okay?
Hey, it's funny because I swear I looked at that game. I was like, dang, I feel like Russ had a pretty decent game compared to last year. And then everybody was just talking about how like Jimmy got it done and Russ couldn't get done. I was like, okay, never mind. I'm sorry.
The fact that we think a game in which Russell Wilson scores 16 points is an improvement, and it is exactly why I think we should be evaluating how much money we're giving some quarterbacks, because like these dudes are liabilities. The only thing that made Ryan Tannehill not a liability was his running back.
Mm-hmm.
Why not just?
I can't believe the Titans did that. I can't believe the Titans paid him and didn't give Derrick. I would have gave Derrick Henry all that money. All that money.
They paid so many other people. Like, that's the thing that befuddles me. It's not a common thing to find good running backs, right? The Bengals have been hanging on to Joe Mixon forever. Not because Joe Mixon is the greatest running back in the world, but like he's a lot better than what you could get on the street. Like, so the myth's not even true. You can't just find guys to replace him. Watch people panic right now if Nick Chubb couldn't play this week. Oh, I thought they're common. You could just find him on the street, Cole. Let's just sign Dearness Johnson. That'll fix it. Yeah, you feeling like that's fixed?
Hell no. Like, if Nick got hurt, I'd be like, oh, we about to lose.
Yeah. What are we doing here, man? Like, I swear to God, I think we just need to be like, hey, man, we need to watch the games, dog. Like, there's no way people can value running back this little and watch football. Like, what you think? You think Bijan made a difference for the Atlanta Falcons? You know who it wasn't? Desmond Ridder. Okay.
Definitely wasn't Desmond Ridder.
Hey, look up those Desmond Ridder stats. They're not impressive. The only time it is impressive is because he threw the ball to who? Bijan goddamn Robinson, the running back. Okay?
No, I saw a stat that said, it said Desmond Ridder was 3 for 3 for negative 11.
Negative 11 yards and a touchdown. And why? Bijan. Okay? Bijan got him there for that one tutty.
Oh, man.
We act like it doesn't matter. It matters so much. I bet you the Philadelphia Eagles would love that if they could run the ball with somebody other than their quarterback. I bet they would love it.
Especially after their fumble.
Mm-hmm. It keep happening to them, right? Man, if they just had somebody whose job it was to run the football that was good, maybe they won a Super Bowl. You know, like, maybe.
Hey, chill out, because I don't need Philly fans yelling at us.
They know it. They should know it. They should know it more than I know it. Why did they win the Super Bowl? Because Jalen Hurts fumbled. Why was Jalen Hurts fumbling? Because they was asking him to run the ball too much. Why was they asking him to run the ball too much? Because who was the Eagles running back last year?
I don't even remember.
Exactly. They signed 3 dudes to replace whatever they had last year.
I want to say Gainwell. Gainwell?
That don't even sound familiar. I don't think it was. I think it was somebody we knew.
I feel like there's a Gainwell running the ball in Philadelphia.
I don't know. But that's the thing. We act like running back don't matter. It clearly matters. It's one of the most important positions. It should be paid a lot more. Now, if you want to make an argument about life cycle, okay, we can handle that case by case. Some guys play long, some guys play short. Cam Newton had a very short career at quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm.
He had like a 6-year run as a quarterback. Great 6-year run, but a 6-year run. Cap's another dude who had a short peak where it's like, hey, he was hot for like 3 years and then kind of had a weird situation to fall off at the end where before the whole controversy around him. But you know, like some guys at quarterback have short careers. Some guys have long. Some guys who are pocket passers play for like 10 years. Some guys play for 15. Somebody told me on Twitter, this is the one that drove me crazy. Hey, well, ultimately it's worth it because Daniel Jones can play quarterback for the Giants until he's 40. Dog, he's 26 and I don't want to see him again. Like, what makes you think I want 14 more years of this? Who wants 14 more years of Daniel Jones? When the arguments are like this, Cole, that tells me nobody's actually thinking about what they're saying. People are just doing stuff.
That's the craziest argument I've ever heard in my life. Like
he can play till he's 40.
Who wants him to stay that long? Nobody
you
wants him
can
to
find a
long.
shitty quarterback for less money. Like, what are you talking about?
Oh, Lord.
In a 3-year contract. He's not even going to be 30 by the time that thing's up. He's going to be cut by the time he's like 28. Let's keep it a buck. That contract ain't seeing the end. He ain't seeing the end of that. He's getting cut in like a year or two. Like that's that. We all knew it. And the thing is, we all knew this was going to happen. Even Daniel Jones was like, I got to get this money right now. You know how he wasn't trying to hold out for a longer deal. You notice how his agent wasn't trying to be like, hey, man, you might have a breakout this year, dog. You know, you got some new receivers. You got Darren Waller. You might want to hold out, get that big money. Sign that deal now, Daniel. Sign it. They offering it, take it. Like, what you mean? What do you mean?
He's got a phenomenal age.
There was no Lamar Jackson situation with that, right? There was no holdout.
Sign right now. Today.
He got that text and went, oh yeah. Daniel Jones's agent signed that contract before Daniel Jones even knew about the offer. Like, come on. But we can't give Jonathan Taylor $12 million. Saquon only getting 10, and people act like that's a lot. You ever hear people talk about Nick Chubb's money? Oh my God, he's gonna have this money off of him. Yo, we got all this money to Nick Chubb, $12.5 million, and he's easily the best player on the offense right now.
Like, the Nick Chubb conversation is crazy because people will be like, man, he ain't getting paid enough for what he actually does for this football team.
The Browns owe Nick Chubb reparations.
They do.
Like, for years of service, right? For years of cheap service. They should pay this man to the day he dies, okay? Like, based off of the work he's already done, he don't even got to do nothing new. He's had like 4 seasons of like 1,200 yard seasons back to back to back. Like, yes, the Browns owe him for the rest of his career. They will never be able to pay him back. And people out here talk about how much money he makes. Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Extend that man today.
I'm pretty sure Austin Hooper made more money when he was over here than Nick Chubb.
Don't tell me that, because I hope that's not true.
It was comparable. Like,
I hope that's not true.
It was comparable. I'm pretty sure it was comparable.
No disrespect to Austin Hooper, but I pray that's not true.
Yep. So the positional value conversation when it comes to contracts, I think it's gotten ridiculous. I think we need to all shut the fuck up and ask ourselves this one question. Does this dude help you win football games? Hey, does Christian McCaffrey help you win more football games than Daniel Jones? Who would you rather have, Christian McCaffrey or Daniel Jones? I would rather have Christian McCaffrey.
It's crazy that we even have to ask that question.
Yeah. Like at some point, we just got to ask ourselves that question. Like, then why are we acting like Daniel Jones is 2 times more valuable than Christian McCaffrey? Why? Because he plays a position and he's not even good at the position. You know what's funny about Daniel Jones? He is a mediocre passer whose best trait is his ability to run football, and yet he gets paid $40 million to be the second running back on the New York Giants. The dude who's the number 1 running back gets paid $10 million in a run-first offense. In a passing attack that partly only succeeds because of his ability to catch out the backfield. And people will look at me sideways when I say this, like I'm not making sense. And I'm like, how does this not make sense? You should probably pay people based on how much they're important to winning. And some people just are, even if their positions aren't what you're going to assume are important to winning. It's that obvious. It's really that obvious. You know what would have helped Anthony Richardson last week? Jonathan Taylor. You know how many yards? You know who was the leading rusher for the Indianapolis Colts this week?
Was it Anthony Richardson?
It was Anthony Richardson. Oh, he's not replaceable, huh? I thought you could just replace Jonathan. You could just throw anybody in there, right? That's why it's not worth $12 million. Then why is Anthony Richardson the leading rusher? You know who's never paid a running back? The Baltimore Ravens. You know who's led the team in rushing yards and attempts in the last 3 years? Lamar Jackson. I'm not even joking. That's a dead serious stat.
I know you're not joking.
We swear to God, running backs don't matter until somebody brings up points that makes it seem like, hey, I guess you need a good one. Like, I wonder how much easier Lamar Jackson's life would be if Nick Chubb was in the backfield with him.
Oh, Lord, could you imagine? Could you imagine?
And here's the thing, Cole. You'll go to any football head, and we would say that. Like, imagine if Christian McCaffrey and Lamar Jackson were in the same backfield. Oh, that would be, oh, my God. But then they're like, hey, we should pay Christian McCaffrey $20 million. What? Like, we acknowledge the value, but we refuse to accept that player should get that value.
Ooh, Lord.
You know what you never say? Hey, man, what if Lamar Jackson had Corey Davis? Like, whoo, fireworks. That ain't moving the needle, huh? They ain't moving the needle the same. I see why.
Oh, Lord.
The running back conversation is so dumb. I'm so over it. Let's talk about these quarterbacks and